Hello, I'm Mike, and welcome to my channel. And today I'd like to talk about understanding the book of Revelation. Revelation is a difficult book to understand, and a lot of people don't even try to even read it to their congregations, which is a shame because the book of Revelation is the only book that comes with a blessing for the person who reads it to the church. But I think that the big obstacle to understanding Revelation is that people don't realize that it's not written in chronological sequence. Now, John faithfully recorded what God showed him because the Bible tells us that. But God didn't show it to John chronologically. Even John said that, and then I saw. But that doesn't mean that it's chronological. It just means that that's what God showed him next. Now, what God did was he took the 7 seals as they were broken, and he explained what happened when each one of the seals broke. And then as each trumpet was blown, God showed what happened with each trumpet. And then the same thing with the 7 bowls. But actually what happens is that one seal is broken, and then some things happen at the mid-time in the tribulation, and then some more seals are broken, then some trumpets are blown, and then another couple seals are broken, and then another trumpet and the bowls are blown. And there's several things that happen at mid-tribulation. So we're going to go over the evidence that points to that shows us that it's not written in a chronological sequence, and I think there's plenty enough evidence to show you where you'll believe that. Now, to get an overview, we go to the book of Daniel, and Daniel says that the Antichrist makes a 7-year peace treaty with the Jews. So for the first 3.5 years, the Antichrist seems like a good guy. He looks like the savior of the world. The world is in terrible need, and he looks like the man, that can make it all better. So for the first 3.5 years, there's relative peace, and the Jews rebuild their temple and start their daily sacrifices. And the whole time that the Antichrist is winning political battles and building up his power. But at the halfway point, it appears he has a fatal wound, maybe an assassination, but then he's healed, and when he's healed, now he blasphemes God. He stands in the holy place in a temple. He desecrates the temple, and he claims that he is God. He wages war against God's people, and he conquers. It says he's given authority for the whole second half of the tribulation to do what he wills. And he is given authority over all the nations. So the Antichrist at first appears to be a good guy, and then at the midpoint, we see his true colors, and he turns out to be the worst person that ever lived. And the second half of the tribulation is just hell on earth. Now, to give us a little bit more about the sequence of events, I'm going to use Matthew chapter 24 to tell us about those events and the signs and things that we need to look for. So in Matthew chapter 24, Jesus is speaking about the tribulation. And then in Matthew chapter 24, verse 29, and once again, I'm going to be reading from the New Living Translation, which I highly recommend. So in Matthew chapter 24, verse 29, it says, immediately after the anguish of those days, so immediately after the tribulation, the sun will be darkened, the moon will give no light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. And at last, the sign that the Son of Man is coming will appear in the heavens, and there will be deep mourning among all the peoples of the earth. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a mighty blast of a trumpet. And they will gather his chosen ones from all over the world, from the farthest ends of the earth and heaven. So here we can see that right after the end of the tribulation, then we're going to see these signs in heavens with the sun and the moon and the stars and the heavens being shaken. And then the Son of Man is going to appear on the clouds of heaven, and he's going to send out his angels to gather all the Christians. And he says that in many places throughout the Bible and parables. It says that the angels, he's going to send out his angels to gather us. He will also send out the angels to gather the evil people. It says, but often he talks about throwing them into the furnace. But he's going to send out his angels when he comes at this point in time to gather all the Christians. So we can see here that this is the rapture. It's clear as day. Some people may try to twist scripture and say, no, that's not the rapture. But it clearly says that when he comes at this point, he's going to send out his angels to gather all of his people. And we're going to see the same language in the book of Revelation. I'm going to show it to you right now. So in Revelation chapter 6, verse 12, it says, I watched as the Lamb broke the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake. The sun became as dark as black cloth, and the moon became red as blood. Then the stars of the sky fell to the earth like green figs falling from a tree shaken by a strong wind. The sky was rolled up like a scroll, and all the mountains and islands were moved from their places. Then everyone, the kings of the earth, the rulers, the generals, the wealthy, the powerful, and every slave and free person, all hid themselves in the caves and among the rocks of the mountains. And they cried to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us, hide us from the face of the one who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of their wrath has come, and who is able to survive? Now, this is just chapter 6 of 22 chapters in Revelation, and already these people are wanting to hide from the wrath of God because the wrath has come, their day has come. These people are hiding. So at the sixth seal, we see those same words back from Matthew chapter 24. We see the things going on with the sun, the moon, and the stars, and this big earthquake that they're talking about, and the shakings of the heavens. So what we see right here, what we saw in Matthew chapter 24 was the rapture. When this happened, the rapture happened. So these people right here at the sixth seal have seen Jesus appear in the heavens with a loud trumpet blast, and then the rapture. And also we see these earthquakes and things going on. But what we don't see right here is what's actually going on is this. This is also the time of the seventh trumpet and the seventh bowl. And I'll show you the readings out of the Bible that'll show that this is actually what's going on right here. So at this point in chapter 6, we have the sixth seal, the seventh trumpet, and the seventh bowl all going on at the same time. So let's look and see what the Bible says about when the seventh trumpet is blown. Revelation chapter 10, verse 7, when the seventh angel blows his trumpet, God's mysterious plan will be fulfilled. And I believe his mysterious plan is the rapture at the seventh trumpet, the last trumpet. When the last trumpet is blown is when the rapture takes place. And then Revelation chapter 11, verse 19 says, after the seventh trumpet was blown, there was an earthquake and a terrible hailstorm. So we can see that there's this earthquake from chapter 6, a terrible earthquake. And now when the reading of the seventh trumpet is read here, that also adds a hailstorm. But we're going to see that that hailstorm is actually from the seventh bowl. So Revelation chapter 16, verse 17 says, when the seventh angel poured out his bowl into the air, and a mighty shout came from the throne in the temple saying, it is finished. Then the thunder crashed and rolled, and lightning flashed, and a great earthquake, the worst since people were placed on the earth. Revelation 16:20 says, and every island disappeared, and all the mountains were leveled. There was a terrible hailstorm, and hailstones weighing as much as 75 pounds fell from the sky onto the people below. They cursed God because of the terrible plague of the hailstorm. So here we see that the seventh bowl adds the hailstorm. And so in chapter 6, we see the sixth seal, the seventh trumpet, and the seventh bowl. And all of the reading supports those signs that are going on at the time. Now, this was chapter 6 when the rapture took place. And in the very next chapter, Revelation chapter 7, verse 9, it says, after this, I saw a vast crowd, too great to count, from every nation and tribe and people and language, standing in front of the throne and before the Lamb. They were clothed in white robes and held palm branches in their hands, and they were shouting with a great roar, "Salvation comes from our God who sits on the throne and from the Lamb." And we see the same wording from this in Revelation chapter 5, verse 9. The people there were talking about Jesus being slaughtered and that his blood had ransomed people for God. And it says, ransom people for God from every tribe and language and people and nation. And that's what these raptured people are in chapter 7. Now, once we figure out that Revelation is not chronological, and that already in chapter 6, that we have reached the end, or very, very close to the end. Actually, chapter 6 is after the end of the tribulation, because Matthew chapter 24 says, after the anguish of those times, then we're going to see these signs and then the rapture. But that helps us put some of the other things into the places that they go into the timeline. So let's go back to the first seal. Now, the first seal, when it's broken, it says a white horse appears and a rider, and he goes out to win many battles. And this first seal is actually the Antichrist. He goes out with the bow, and he just wins political battles and gains strength. So that's the beginning of the 7-year tribulation, and pretty much that's the only thing that goes on during the first 3.5 years as a relative time of peace. And the Antichrist appears to be a good guy. And then we come up to mid-tribulation. Now, there's several events that happen at the mid-tribulation. One we've already talked about, where it looks like the Antichrist has a fatal wound but is brought back to life. And then, of course, he turns into a bad guy, attacks God's people, conquers them, and there's just war and war and war from then on. The whole time, the 3.5-year tribulation is just hell for the whole time. Constant war, death, and destruction. So the next thing that actually happens after that point is Revelation chapter 11, which is the story of the two witnesses. And this starts at mid-tribulation and then goes all the way through the whole second half of the tribulation. And I'll read it to you because I think that it's important. Revelation chapter 11, verse 13, verse 3 says, "And I will give power to my two witnesses, and they will be clothed in burlap, and they will prophesy during those 1,260 days, which is 3.5 years. These two prophets are the two olive trees and the two lampstands that stand before the Lord of all the earth. If anyone tries to harm them, fire flashes from their mouths and consumes their enemies. This is how anyone who tries to harm them must die. They have power to shut the sky so that no rain will fall for as long as they prophesy. And they have the power to turn rivers and oceans into blood and to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they wish. When they complete their testimony, the beast that comes up out of the bottomless pit will declare war against them, and he will conquer them and kill them. And their bodies will lie in the main street of Jerusalem, the city that is figuratively called Sodom and Egypt, the city where their Lord was crucified. And for 3.5 days, all peoples, tribes, languages, and nations will stare at their bodies. No one will be allowed to bury them. All the people who belong to this world will gloat over them and give presents to each other to celebrate the death of the two prophets who tormented them. But after 3.5 days, God breathed life into them, and they stood up. Terror struck all who were staring at them. Then a loud voice from heaven called to the two prophets, "Come up here." And they rose to the heavens in a cloud as their enemies watched. At the same time, there was a terrible earthquake that destroyed 1/10 of the city. So here we have this tale of the two witnesses. It starts at the beginning of the second half of the tribulation and goes 1,260 days. So the whole 3.5 years. And the Antichrist kills them right at the end of the tribulation. And they lay there dead for 3.5 days. And then they are brought back to life and raised back up to heaven. And their enemies see them go. They see them stand up and they see them go. And then there is a great earthquake. This right here goes back to chapter 6. This happens at chapter 6. These two witnesses being brought back to life is the rapture that's going on at the time. When these two witnesses are brought back to life, every Christian is brought back to life, and we all send to heaven. The angels come and gather us, and we all send to heaven. We are all going to be visible, and all these people will see all the Christians go. That garbage about us suddenly disappearing and our clothes falling to the ground and glasses and fillings and all that stuff is just all garbage. That's not in the Bible anywhere. It's going to be visible. The rapture is going to be visible. Just like these two witnesses were visible. Jesus was visible when he ascended into heaven, into the clouds. We're going to be visible. The rapture will be. Now there's another event that takes place. It starts at the beginning of the second half that's also important, and that's the tale about the dragon and the woman. And it says that in Revelation chapter 1, I saw a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon beneath her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant, and she cried out because of her labor pains and the agony of giving birth. And the dragon, of course, is Satan. And Satan is waiting there for her to give birth so that he can devour the child. It says, then Satan the dragon stood in front of the woman as she was about to give birth, ready to devour her baby as it was born. She gave birth to a son who was to rule all nations with an iron rod. But the dragon didn't get to devour the baby. God caught up the baby to him and protected the baby. So it says the baby was caught up to God, and the woman fled into the desert to a place prepared for her where she would be safe from Satan for the rest of the tribulation. For the 1260 days she'll be kept safe. So she fled. She fled when the baby was born, and Satan wasn't able to catch her. So at this point, all Israel needs to flee. Jesus says when the Antichrist desecrates the temple, when he stands in the holy place, it's time to flee. There's not even time to go back to your house and get anything or go downstairs and get a coat. You have to flee. And it says here that if you flee, that there's a place prepared in the desert that will keep you safe from Satan for the next 3.5 years. Actually, that sounds like the place to be, because the rest of the Christians, the Satan is going to come after us and try to kill us all. So it sounds here like this woman and the people that flee, have a pretty sweet deal. Now, those are the main events that happen at the beginning of the second half. The resurrection of the Antichrist, the dragon, the woman, and the two witnesses. And then starting at the beginning of the second half, along with these events, then we have seals 2, 3, and 4, which is war, famine, and death in the grave. And we also have 6 of the trumpets that take place, and those all bring death and destruction as well. And then we have the 5th seal, which is the martyrs asking for justice. And that happens right at the end of the tribulation, right before the 6th seal. So then we have the 6th seal, the 7th trumpet, and we have the resurrection, the rapture, and then the 7 bowls take place in rapid fire right after the rapture takes place. So right after rapture, then the 7 bowls, rapid fire, and those cause terrible destruction. Now, after the 7th bowl, then we have the wedding feast of the Lamb, while the armies of the earth gather for Armageddon. After the wedding feast of the Lamb, then it says that Jesus Christ goes forth on a white horse, along with all of the angels and all of the Christians. And that Jesus destroys all of the armies and captures the Antichrist and the false prophet and throws them into the lake of fire. And Satan is chained and thrown into the bottomless pit for 1,000 years. So reread Revelation with the thought that it is not in chronological sequence. Listen to what I say and see if you can put the rest of it in the timeline where it belongs, and see if this helps you understand the book of Revelation much better than you did before. If you have any comments, please leave them and let's discuss what was said. And thanks for watching.